Well, a very, very, very warm welcome to this, our Curious Piano Teacher webinar. We've just been saying in the little pre-chat there how long it has actually been, and we've been used to doing meetings, but it is lovely to have everyone joining us live. And if you are watching the replay a little bit later on, again, just giving you a big shout out and hello. So we are celebrating officially tomorrow our 9th birthday. I mean, yeah, Sally, can you quite believe it that the Curious Piano Teachers is 9 years old?
It's wonderful, Sharon, isn't it? Absolutely wonderful. That and here we still are. We're slightly less nervous, I think, although it's just I can feel a few twinges in the tummy, always good. But you know, the first webinar it was, oh, what are we doing? Here we are. You could say we're seasoned pros now, I suppose. And we are delighted that you have come along to join us for this webinar on actually one of our favourite topics, which is about the teaching of notation. We were just reminiscing, weren't we, Sharon, that when we were sitting in my kitchen 10 years ago, actually, planning this, we thought we were just going to put out a course about teaching notation. It changed, as all things do, and morphed into the Curious Piano Teachers. But I don't think we've ever really done that, put out a course about notation. So we thought we'd actually come online with this free webinar for everyone and just share our thoughts and our thinking, which I have to say, over the last 9 years. So yeah. I'm going to share my screen and we'll just crack on, I think. Here we go. There we are. So thank you all again for joining us, and I'm going to be, sometimes you'll see me like this, and sometimes it will be Sharon and I, and we've got some wonderful videos for you to watch that Sharon's made with her lovely son, Ruel. And as I say, we are here to talk today about some guiding principles, really, on how to teach rhythm notation. We are fascinated, aren't we, as piano teachers, about notation and how we teach it and how some students become really fluent readers and how others really get to struggle. And in fact, you can go to Facebook groups just any day of the week and you'll find probably some discussion going on there about notation. Sadly, I think sometimes these discussions turn into polarized arguments. But that is the nature of Facebook. Now, we're not alone actually in being fascinated by notation, and Gabby McPherson and Alf Gabrielsson, two of the leading researchers into this area, calls it one of the most contentious issues in music pedagogy, how and when to introduce notation to a beginning instrumentalist. Now, I think what it is there isn't one right way of introducing notation or teaching notation, and that's because we're all very individual teachers, very individual people. Our students are really all very individuals as well. So you can't say, well, here's a system, use it and stick with it, and that will work for everybody. So we're not going to try and give you a solution today, but we are going to give you a set of guiding principles. And by using those guiding principles, you can start to measure the way you currently teach to work out whether it's really as effective as you'd like it to be. And we'll also be giving you a set of tools that we use in our own teaching that we found highly successful, and you can take or leave them as you like. But if you want to use them, you can use them to adjust or to give you some ideas about how to start to adjust your teaching to fit with these guiding principles. I'm still learning myself, so I always find that the fascinating thing. Every time I teach something, it's a slightly different thing, and that's what makes teaching such a wonderful thing. So first, I want to talk about the traditions in music. I want to consider the two traditions that we have. We have the oral tradition, and then, of course, there is the written tradition. I wonder which you think, and you might pop it into the comments because I think Sharon should be able to read those. If you could jot down in the comments, if you like, which one you think is the dominant tradition across the world, the oral tradition or the written tradition?
It's really interesting, Sally, because even when you had that quote up from Gabrielson and McPherson, I was kind of thinking, way back in the day when I first started teaching the piano, and when I wouldn't have quite believed you that I would have actually taken it on seriously as a career. It was, I didn't even consider when I would introduce notation. I did right from the very beginning because I was sure that that's what you were supposed to do. And isn't it interesting that I'm sure there's a lot of piano teachers here on this call today, and it's exactly the same thing. You started with the tutor book.
You start the tutor book. I have got one here, in fact, that I used an awful lot when I was a young teacher. And it's a wonderful book in so many ways, written by the very wise and wonderful Fanny Waterman and Marion Hend. And when I was teaching at the start, back in the 80s, this was one of the most popular books around. And it's still around, and it's still popular, and it's still full of wonderful things. But what I would do is I would start in the way that the book starts, which, and this is not the books, by the way, by having a page full of notation. That is the first thing pretty much in the book. Things have moved on. I would get easily sidetracked, but I'm not going to. Because if you put in the comments that you think the oral tradition is the dominant tradition in the world, then you are quite right. It is the most widely used way of sharing music, the oral tradition. Music is communicated across the world orally. In other words, by listening and by hearing and by singing, speaking, whatever. Here, in Western classical art form, written notation has become very, very important, however. So much so that we're sometimes tempted to think, a bit like the tutor books do in this country, we're very tempted to think, actually, it is the most important tradition, but actually, it really isn't. And it wasn't like this all the way back in the time of Mozart and Haydn and Beethoven. This was not the most important thing, and it still isn't the most important thing. When they were teaching, and Haydn, Mozart, Bach, they certainly were all teachers. When they were teaching, they improvised. They improvised studies, techniques, they made up, they scribbled down new pieces for their students. That's the way they did it in those days. And really, it was only at the beginning of the 19th century that the shift started to happen when the piano became what I would call the iPhone of its day. Yeah, it was that popular. And printed music became very widely available. And the musical language that we all had to understand absolutely exploded. Gradually, over the course of the 19th century, there was a shift towards the reliance on reading from written notation rather than the oral, the improvisation, etc., that had been really the predominant way of communicating music. So let's leave history behind for a bit, because we need to put notation in its place in the way that we currently teach. It is an urgent thing that we need to do as teachers. We need to understand the role of notation, and we need to give it its role, but not too important a role. I'm not saying it's not important, but it has got to have its place. So I'm going to turn to the work of the music educator Edwin Gordon. And he compares how the language skills that we all have, I'm speaking English, I'm reading English, I can speak English quite well. He compares the language skills we all have with the parallel music skills. So he says the language skills, this is the development that we go through: listening, and then we speak, and then we think, and then we read, and then we write. And if any of you, have children, or if you are familiar with children, just think about their progression. That's exactly what's going on for them. In fact, I think, Sharon, with your two children, you've got Damaris, who's 18 months or so. What stage is she at the moment?
She's at the stage where she is, all of the babblings are definitely becoming a lot more refined. I said something to her just this morning, and she was obviously trying. It didn't sound like anything you would understand, but you could recognize that she was trying to say it, and her vocabulary is definitely growing.
Yeah, so she's in the listening and the speaking kind of stage at the moment, isn't she? She's not in the thinking stage yet, because she probably hasn't got the cognitive idea of what it is she's saying, but she's definitely getting there. Whereas with Ruel, who is what he,
Yeah, so he's the whole way up there in terms of the thinking, the reading, and the writing.
yeah. So if we look at the parallel music skills then for our students, it starts again with listening, and listening, Gordon says, is absolutely fundamental. And this listening is listening to the sameness and the difference of context. Yeah.
And it's something I'm going to just say, Sally, that I remember in my early days as a piano teacher, it was something I really struggled to do because it was not the fundamental way that I had been taught. And it was actually quite scary having to listen and to do that comparison, because it was not something my ears were not particularly open. Even as a young teacher,
Yeah.
it was something I became very aware of the more courses I did. And obviously, in terms of where I'm at now, I'm on a completely different place on the spectrum. But it is, and I'd invite everyone on this call to really think about that. Have you gone through a journey in terms of your listening? Did you find that, as maybe a kind of a grade 8 level student, where your listening just wasn't quite sharply as tuned as it might have been?
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Sharon. Um, so with our early piano learners, we go through these stages, really. We should be going through listening, on to singing and chanting, lovely use of words there, singing and chanting, and then audiating and improvising, reading, then writing. So audiating is a word that Gordon uses, and it means to make sense of the music internally in your head. It's not just the ability to hear the music in your head, it's a much deeper thing than that. It's actually to make meaningful sense of the music. So to understand the relationships of the sound that you're hearing in your head, to actually, I think, to be able to feel the sense of playing what you can hear in your head. Yeah, it's quite a refined skill. We call it sometimes with children, we call it the thinking voice. And that's at the point where we're getting them to use the tools that we're giving them, like the rhythm language, and you'll see Ruel using it later on in a video. So it's not quite audiation at that moment, but he's definitely using his inner ear at that particular
I
moment.
really like what you're saying there, Sally, and even just inviting our teachers on the call today to imagine playing a major scale. Um, let's say using two note slurs and becoming louder as you go up, becoming quieter as you go down. You start to get to what extent can you actually hear, and as Sally, you were saying, actually being able to kind of feel that.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
absolutely. Um, So Gordon goes on to say that students, and he was talking to a group of piano teachers here, I think it was an NCKP presentation. Students are generally presented with a book of notation. The first three readiness vocabularies are bypassed, and that, remember, was the listening, it was the singing and chanting, and the audiating and the improvising. He's saying we miss those. We don't even touch them, and we go straight in at the reading. And you can only read meaningfully if actually you can make sense of the sound. And he goes on to say it is not surprising that a high proportion of students are frustrated with good reason. And I wonder how that word frustration and frustrated strikes you. For me, it stands out as something that has a real truth to it. Our students get frustrated when they can't read something or when they can't play something. And to be honest, we get frustrated by our students being frustrated. And it doesn't feel good, does it? It doesn't feel good. It kind of sits within you as this heavy thing. Now, at this point in time, the, it's something we need to be dealing with and how that feels. And I'll come back to that in a moment. But first of all, I want to give you some points about the about some researchers, Gary McPherson and Alf Planck at this point, that they make generally about notation. And I'm not going to go through these. I'm just going to let you read them through as I just bring them up for you here. These are some very thought-provoking points. Singing helps to create a correct mental model. In other words, when you sing, your brain starts to create these models of what music is, what sound is like, how one sound connects to another. And look, he says it should be a common and natural part of all early lessons. It's particularly the case with the younger children. Absolutely the case, it has to be there. We have to mentally and outwardly rehearse the singing and the fingering of a piece by ear, and then that develops our ability to experience those sounds when we bring the gestures in. I've been really conscious actually of that link that we have to create between our ear and the gestures that we make. So important. Anyhow, we're not, let's just go on, because I've got a couple of questions further for you. And let's get on to the next page. So here's your first question. What are your strengths, would you say? What are your strengths when it comes to teaching your students to be independent readers of rhythm notation? What are you really good at? Yeah. And then what are your weaknesses when it comes to teaching your students to be independent rhythm readers of rhythm? So 2 questions there. What are your strengths when it comes to teaching students to be independent readers of rhythm? And what are your weaknesses? Have you got any thoughts, Sharon, about that?
When I think about the topic that we're thinking about today, my mind always goes back to my early days as a teacher. And I was wondering even there as you were talking, I wonder how many teachers on this call, because obviously singing in piano lessons, that's kind of, there was a lot of singing, internalization on that previous page. I wonder how many piano teachers here who, under the influence of the curious piano teachers and the fact that we are saying, and we have been demonstrating and showing you how to incorporate singing and the importance of this musicianship training in lessons. If you were to think back 10 years ago, when the curious piano teachers didn't exist, versus today. But for me, I guess, why is it we always go with our weaknesses first, not the strengths? But, in terms of actually being able to sing, was a really, really big thing for me to overcome, and to sing without the help of the piano creating the sound for you. It was a very, very long time, but it is interesting just to think, to kind of go through the timeline, like kind of my personal timeline as a piano teacher. And you were mentioning about frustration earlier, and how frustrating it was to teach notation, because they didn't understand, quite frankly. That's why they were so frustrated. And I was frustrated because I didn't have the tools, the strategies. I didn't understand the whole backdrop that we're presenting here today. That was just not a part of my knowledge and awareness.
Absolutely.
Enter it, and you start to change out things, and suddenly you do have to think quite hard to kind of go, so what did I do kind of 25 years ago? And then the realization of, well, why did I not even think?
Yeah.
Why did I just do that?
That's what I did. When I started teaching, I followed a book. And luckily, it's a very musical book. But, I would follow the book, and we would do these rhythm clapping. That sounded like a good idea to me. Did I do that any further? I don't know. Probably not. And then we went on to reading the notation here, and then we were straight into playing our first piece with mnemonics and stuff like that. And that's what I did, because I didn't know any better. I just compare even where I was 10 years ago, and my depth of understanding oh, it's just leapt forward. And I think one thing that is a strength for me is the number of resources that I use to develop rhythm teaching and pitch teaching, and that I don't just sit at the piano any longer, but I come off the piano with my students and we do all sorts of activities. And I'll show you some of those in a moment, because I want to share with you now the guiding principles, when I can get my presentation to come back on. I've come off my presentation. Here we go. Right. Just give me a moment. I'm going to find. I said to Sharon.
I will keep, by the way, guys, I will keep looking out for the chat because either you've all gone very quiet on us or you're busy typing.
Okay, so let's have a look at the 5 guiding principles I talked about. And first guiding principle is that we have to sum up the sound. The second one is everything has to be musically meaningful, presented in musically meaningful ways. The third one is that we use specific teaching strategies. And the fourth one is to be specific and direct with the instructions that you give. And then the fifth and final one, which is to be, our favourite words, persistent and consistent in the way that you are teaching. So we're going to look at those now in a little bit more detail. Let's look at this one, which is starting with the sound. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this little phrase called the sound before the symbol. But it is so important that whenever we introduce a new concept, it is not totally brand new, that the student, whether it's young or old, the student has never heard of this concept before, never experienced that. So we need to take our students from a concrete experience, might be just copying your rhythm clapping back. That probably didn't come over because of the microphone, but it might just be copying back a rhythm or whatever, to its abstract representation, in other words, notation. So we have to make musical sound first, and then we can extract the concept and give it an abstract representation. Just like Jerome Bruner. We're just following Jerome Bruner here and his scaffolding idea. Again, think about Gordon, think about listening, singing, chanting, audiating, and improvising, all those things. So we're going to come off screen here, and I'm going to hand over to Sharon, because she's going to teach you all a little chant. Over to you, Sharon.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so I am going to do it the whole way through. First of all, I want you to just watch and listen. Oh, sorry, start with this. There we go. Thank you, Sally. Double, double this, double, double that, double this, double that, double, double this, that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take one phrase, I'm going to do it with the actions, and then I'd like you to copy back. Got 3 actions, so clapping, hopefully you can see what I'm doing there, so hands, and you can, it is best done if you've got someone right in front of you, and then we've got this. So here is the first phrase. Double, double this. Double, double that. Double this, double that. Double, double this, that. Okay. So I don't know if you can give me thumbs up, but just give me a thumbs up on how that went. Sally, back over to you again.
Okay, can we do it all the way through? One more. Oh yeah, again, lots of thumbs up. Should we do it one more time, Sharon? Yeah. And let's have some fun. You might want to stand up. You might want to have a little walk around as you do it, because you have to keep the beat with your feet. That is so important. And then it ups the level of challenge, I think you'll find as well. When you can move around, let me just remove the spotlight, yeah? So when you're going to move around, keeping the beat with your feet, yeah? And do the chants at the same time. And you can tap any area in your room. So are you ready? Off you go. Double, double, this, double, double, that. Double this, double, double this. Yeah, so it's a lovely little brain break, I think, that one. And Jenny has asked about for advice on teaching reluctant and flat refuse singers. Use a chart. Try using a chart with them and try making it such a fun thing that they can't refuse. Yeah, sometimes
It's,
they will. It does depend.
it's yeah, it's that thing they are typically comfortable with their speaking voice. And just by definition, we're calling it a chant. You might also refer to it as a rhyme. That uses our speaking voice. In a particular, notice a rhythmic where we're not saying double, double this, double, double, you've got. So I think, and we will come to this point, but to be consistent and persistent and for us to be comfortable with it as well.
I think
think
that's really
we need to grow with it as teachers. I remember when I started, I was not comfortable. And when we're not comfortable, it really does translate onto our students. Whereas, I kind of over, that a 10-year period, just it shifted. It shifted. Sally.
Yeah. It's about not apologising. You do it, they can join you if you want. Yeah. So I will often say that, say, I'm just going to have a little sing and I'm going to walk around the room. And if you want to join me, you can, but I'm happy to be silly by myself. So you join me. Yeah. You do have to sort of step into the world of childishness. Yeah. Childishness. And
Yeah.
love being a child.
And I remember a particular student that I actually still have. She is now first year of university, and I remember her as a 5-year-old saying to me, "I'm not singing. I'm not singing," and just again, kind of being okay with that, but just gradually, don't kind of take it as in a no, never, just
Yeah.
as a kind of not yet.
Not yet. And that's fine. It's got to be fine. And then just like you, Sharon, a student, I've still got it, but 3, 4 years ago, she wouldn't sing. She really wouldn't sing. And now she's having singing lessons. So it comes. We just have to be persistent and consistent with the message that yeah, this is okay. You choose your time. Right, so starting with the sound, let's go back to that one again. And we've had a little look at that. The other thing I wanted to say was about that is that, the word rhythm comes from a Greek word, which means flow. And so always make sure that there is a flow to your rhythm. That's why it's good to get up and get the beat in your feet. I cannot tell you how important this is for encouraging a sense of beat, a sense of flow, and having fun trying to do both at the same time. Really very, very important. So second principle is about musically meaningful. We have to introduce rhythm notation in musically meaningful ways. To say this is a crotchet and this is a minim. Well, what have I told you? I've told you this is called a crotchet and this is called a minim. Is that musically meaningful? Absolutely not. It's a name. It's quite nice to know it. Do I need my students to know it in their first lesson? I don't think so. That doesn't mean to say I won't call it a crotchet in a minute, but I'll say, oh, this, I won't even go there. I won't even call them like that, as you'll see in a moment, because it doesn't give the learner ownership or the tools in order to recreate that sound, either internally or externally. And also, it's not musically meaningful because it's not a phrase. Music appears in patterns, and we need to teach in patterns. We need our students to read patterns of notation, of rhythmic notation. And the phrase, as the wonderful much Miss Michael Stocks used to say, a phrase like this one here, I'm a rich hand, I don't know.
Other side.
A phrase is the most basic musical unit. There, that has music for, that is meaningful in music. Yeah. So we could say, off we go. And also we are creating music where each sound has a relationship to the next one. So notice, okay, this is stick notation, what I've done here, but it's just missing the blobs. We don't need the blobs at the moment. But notice it's starting with crotchets and quavers. Yeah, crotchets and quavers. I'm not going to call them crotchets and quavers. I might refer to them, but I'm not expecting the student to learn that yet. The reason I'm starting with crotchets and quavers is because it's the best rhythm for children to learn. A 4-beat note, you just try it. 1, 2, 3, 4. How long is that? And to say to a child, can you count for 4 beats and hold that note for 4 beats? 1, 2, 3, 4. That is such a long time for a child. So we start with notation that is closer to their own natural movement. For example, they will get that. They will absolutely get it. I had a really interesting case the other day, a few weeks ago now actually, where I gave a student the same rhythm, but the first one was written as minim and 2 crotchets, and the second one was written as a crotchet and 2 quavers. Yeah. And which one do you think they were able to clap more successfully? The crotchet and the 2 quavers. They just couldn't get the relationship of the minims and the crotchets in the first one. So start with, my advice would be to start with the crotchets and the quavers. Now, one of the things I think we are most proud of in the Curious Piano Teachers that we have developed is something called the piano framework. And I know that many of the teachers in the community of the Curious Piano Teachers also value highly the piano framework that we put together. And this covers skills and concepts, or mostly concepts actually, that have to be learned all the way through the progression of somebody from a beginner all the way to an advanced level. There is a progression of skills that we have to build on, and here is the progression, give you a little clue for the progression that we need to introduce rhythm notation and rhythm concepts. So you can see here at beginner level 1, we are beginning to distinguish between pulse and rhythm. We're already identifying 2 sounds to 1 pulse, aka a quaver, an 8th note. We're labelling crotchet and quaver note rhythms. This is the UK version. There is a US version as well. And we're using rhythm language, tar and TT, all rhythm words. And we're also using notation to represent rhythm. Doesn't mean to say it's got to be notation that looks like this necessarily, but there are other ways we can represent notation. And then we get on to beginner level 2, and we move on now to quavers, minims, semi-reeds, etc., and dotted minims, and then we can go on to number 3, elementary level 2. So we've missed out elementary 1, onto elementary 2. This is where we start to come out with the idea of dotted crotchet and quaver. Any earlier than this, and they will struggle. Time signatures like 2-2, 3-8 come out here. Syncopation comes in here. And it's at elementary 3 level. Oh, I managed to missay that. Let's go back to elementary 3 level. Here we go. We have semi-quavers for the first time. We have compound time. So that gives a lovely progression that is absolutely right for our students, and we can make it musically meaningful, and they will develop the tools they need to really become independent, secure, and fluent readers of rhythm. Okay. Let's go on to the third guiding principle, and this is about using direct teaching, specific teaching strategies. So I'm going to come off here. So I'll stay on for the moment. I'm going to teach you a song. So I'd like you all to stand up, because if you're sitting down, then it's really good to stand up. Let's everybody have a little stand up if you can. If you're listening to somewhere like a coffee shop, then obviously you might not want to join in this. You can use your thinking voice, okay? So give yourself a little shake, have a listen. My turn, your turn. Your job is to listen. And this is how you need to stand. Make sure you do that. I can't check on you, but make sure you do. Oh, hey, look at me. I'm smiling. Can you see? Can you be that back to me? Hey, me. I'm smiling. Can you see? My turn. Have a listen. Hey, hey, look at me. I'm waving. Can you see? Your turn. Hey, I'm waving. Can you see? Hey, hey, look at me. I'm marching. Can you see? Hey, hey, I am marching. Can you see? Hey, hey, look at me. I am grooving. Can you see? Hey, hey, look at me. I am grooving. Can you see? Etc. 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 It's how easy it can be actually to learn the song, and it's not a question that I have to teach it to you. You sort of called it, didn't you? Because it's just a response song, that's all. So that is, I think some of you will probably know that, but that is a typical song that I might use to start to introduce this idea of rhythm being something that we can work with. So I'm just going to change my camera and go down to the
And
floor.
I'm just going to say, guys, isn't it lovely to be able to move? And kids love moving. Love moving. Yeah? Then sitting on the bench for too long is not a good thing.
Okay, so I'm going to go down on the floor. Can you see me clearly? Or is my purple one gone again?
Purple one is gone again, so let me just see if I can spotlight. There we go.
Yeah. Just that, do want it. It's like
Yep, yep, we can see that.
the hello everybody. The you teach the song, yeah? You've learnt the song ideally the previous week. Remember, we said singing is an important part of early lessons. I think singing is an important part of lessons, full stop. Doesn't mean to say it's opera singing, it's just everyday singing. It might be da-di-da-di-da-ing kind of singing sometimes. It can be, you know, the most casual kind of singing possible. We're not fussy about the type of singing that you do, but singing is important. And if you're not attempting to sing, then why do we play the piano? Because that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to create a singing sound on the piano all the time. So we've sung the song, we've learnt the song, we've had a bit of fun with the song, and then I might say to my student, let's come down on the floor. And what I've got on the floor, you see, are my lovely floor spots. And I have got 8 of these, I just don't have the space for them. So I might do the song like this, and I might say, oh, I'm going to take one of my ducks. Would you, if you could choose a duck for me? And they might choose, oh, this is Unicorn Duck. She's the latest addition to my duck stable. And let's see if Unicorn Duck can bounce up and down on the beat as we sing the song. Hey, hey, look at me. I'm jumping, can you see? Hey, hey, look at me. I am jumping, can you see? Hey, etc. etc. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. So they are tapping the beat, if you like. Of course, there are many ways you can do this activity. I'm just demonstrating one to you. And then I would say, have a listen, because this time you keep Unicorn Duck and I'm going to take Spotty Duck. Okay, have a listen to and watch what Spotty Duck does, because I wonder if Spotty Duck is going to do something different. Off I go. Hey, hey, look at me. Ooh. Did you notice I stopped singing at that point? Have a listen again. Off I go. Hey, hey, look at me. I wonder, powerful question there, I wonder which spot Spotty Duck does 2 bounces on. Have a listen again. Off I go. Hey, hey, look at me. And they will correctly guess that it's the blue one. But you have to read the child. You have to see their level of understanding. They'll probably be beating you to it. They'll probably go, it's the blue one, it's the blue. Fantastic. In that case, you move on a bit. You go, you match the child. If they're looking slightly puzzled, then you know you haven't got your words clear enough. And then you might say, okay, can we do it together? Yeah, let's see if we can bounce together. 2 on the blue one. Off we go. Hey, hey, look. Oh, was very well done. Well done, unicorn duck. This time I'm going to do something a bit different. So I wonder whether you could work out what I've done differently this time. Off I go. Ta, ta, tick, tick, ta. And I'll do it again. Off I go. Ta, ta, tick, tick, ta. What did you notice that time? And they will say, they might struggle sometimes, or they might just immediately copy what you've done. And I might say, what did I say on the blue spot that had 2? What did I say there? Do you remember? Tick, tick. And what did I say when it had 1? Ta. This is what we call our rhythm language. And when we have 1 sound, we call it ta, ta. And when we have 2 sounds, we call it tick, tick, ta. Are you ready? Let's do it again together. Off we go. Ta, ta, tick, ta. Yeah. And then we can do things like ask them to write that rhythm. Ta, ta, ti, ti, ta. Pirate ducks got left out. And then we might tap that rhythm. Off we go. Ta, ta, ti, ti, ta. Yeah. And then, of course, we can ask them, oh, I wonder where, can we get Pirate Duck involved? Can you put Pirate Duck on one of the spots? And Pirate Duck might come up and join Spotty Duck. So now we've got to have 2 sounds, and let's have a listen. Off we go. Tick, tick, ta, tick, tick, ta. And then you play games, endless games. But by doing this, I have made visual to them the very difficult thing that rhythm is, because rhythm exists orally. They need to understand the rhythm. They need to, when they look at notation, they have to mentally represent. We've talked about that earlier, haven't we? They have to mentally represent. So what I've done by coming down here, by doing something very visual, very tactile, is I've given them a sense of being able to manipulate the rhythm. I've also, when we've been talking about this a lot in the Curious World, I can see their learning. I've made their learning visible to me. I can see and hear whether or not they're understanding this very basic first step of working out rhythms and applying rhythm language to it. Okay, so I'm going to come back up here and Sharon, what's about rhythm language as opposed to sort of metrical counting that people might be more used to?
Yes, can I do that in just a second? I just want to pull 3 kind of summary points from that. Yeah, it's being able to see that, because how often, because maybe that's the way we were taught it, do we just talk about these things? And there you've got that lovely tactile, visual, memorable way of doing it. I also love the way Sally kept asking the questions, what do you notice? I wonder. And then also just the way, Sally, you moved through the different stages. And also what you were saying about, watch the child, listen to the child. What are their responses? Sometimes we can all too easily preempt what we think is going to happen, rather than just really being in the moment and really, absorbing the feedback that they're giving us. And it very often it's non-verbal. So sorry, Sally, coming back to the question you were asking.
No,
Oh yes,
Come on. About the use of metrical language and why we're avoiding the use of metrical language at the moment and rhythm language. And any thoughts you've got on that?
Well, I remember a student kind of going and kind of, pointing to four crotchets and going, so why is that one two? Why is that one three? And why is that one four? It's like they're all the same. So why are you assigning a different number? in their own, young beginner way of speak, and they're kind of a bit confused. And obviously with this counting, the French rhythm names, you have that consistency. I mean, another way that I have done in the past is to link it into words that they know. So, for example, pear, representing crotchet, apple, two syllables, and where you tap rhythm, they're kind of pear, pear, apple, pear, and even for more complex rhythms, where you've got blueberry, blueberry, and suddenly there is that connection. So those are my thoughts on metrical counting, where it's that obviously your floor spots are representing the fact that there are four beats, and then you're overlaying the rhythm with the ducks.
Yeah, and I think I absolutely agree. And counting is a really hard thing still. Numbers are still quite unfamiliar to many younger children. And by that I mean your average age, which is 7, 6, 7, 8, so counting, they have finger numbers, of course, as well, don't we? So there's that. We've already got numbers there. That's another confusing factor. And as Sharon said, this idea that you're moving from 1, 2, 3, 4, you're moving through time with that sense of meter. If you just introduce that as a pure concept by itself, without linking it to the idea of meter, without linking it to the idea of movement, I mean, you're
And even
synchronized.
if you're doing, because at that point, then when you're kind of thinking in that way, then quavers become particularly problematic. It's this thing of you're kind of going, so have you done fractions in school yet? Will they understand half? You kind of go, but they don't need to at this point. That's not the point.
Yeah, that will come. Metrical counting, absolutely important, but it has a place where it happens, and it's not right at the first time you meet a new rhythmic concept or a new rhythmic pattern. What you do want to give them is a tool. You want to give them a tool so that they can work out the rhythm for themselves, and so that they will become an independent reader. So whether you use the fruit rhythms that Sharon's just talked about, whether you use time lanes like I've just been using, you'll hear Sharon and Ruel using them slightly differently. And that to me is fine as well. Or you might say walk, walk, running, walk. But as we come back later, you just need to be persistent and consistent. Don't use 1 week.
Don't switch them out because that will get confusing.
Confusing. So I think we're going to watch a few videos of Ruel now, aren't we? Going
Okay.
through, and I'll just let Sharon.
And ready.
And I, I just love these videos that Sharon has done with her 7-year-old son Ruel. I especially love the first one because he's obviously just a little bit, oh, am I doing this for a video? And then the big beam that he gives us at the end. Again, as I say, it's so important to watch the child. I pick up these little clues.
Okay, so let me, I'm just going to click on that so I have optimized for
Yeah.
video. Okay, and let me do this. Can you see that, Sally?
Yes, yes, that's lovely. And it's
Ah, he's wearing a party hat.
it's wearing his party hat. Yeah.
Are you ready? Off you go. The grin at the very end.
green. It's just wonderful, just wonderful. So that was Sharon doing double with him. Are we going to have the next two as well, Sharon, to go along with it?
Yeah, let me just get the next one up. Okay, so video 2.
By the way, we did schedule this webinar to last 90 minutes because we weren't sure how long we are going to take, and I think we will be going on. If you can stay with us, great. If you can't, then the replay will be available and will be sent to everybody who has registered. Sharon. Let me just explain what he's doing there, Sharon, I think.
Yes. I wonder what you all think he was doing there. But what he was, so he has the rhyme in his head, and that was kind of just checking that, without me doing or saying anything, can you say the rhyme, the chant, in your thinking voice and tap the rhythm?
Yeah. So the use of the thinking voice and getting them to use that thinking voice is so important in their learning process. Absolutely vital. So as Sharon said, you get them to tap it, hear it in their head. And the other thing you can do is get them just to tap one phrase in their thinking voice, because that makes it really evident. If we'd asked them to do double, this.
And of course, the other thing that sometimes students do is, because they have been doing the actions for, of course, the pulse, they might go instead of the rhythm. Yeah. Okay, so have a listen to this next one. What do you think is happening in this one? So there we go, number 3. Tay, 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 ta, ta. 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 Tay, tay, ta, tay, tay, ta. Tay, tay, ta, tay, tay, ta. Tay, 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 ta, ta. Tay, 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 ta, ta.
A good example of listening going on there, because he's actually not really watching the rhythm, and you were taught he's actually listening. Yeah, so that's a lovely example, I think, there of direct teaching, isn't it? Where you're just saying, you're just modeling to him the rhythm language, and he's copying you back.
Yeah. The other thing that's worth just saying, because it was something that I remember in my early days of teaching I had to correct, is that to get it to be musically effective, you do want to, so for example, teacher, and I'll demonstrate in a minute the students, so teacher, tay, 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 ta, ta. The student, a few seconds later, tay, 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 ta, ta. What you want is to imagine, and maybe you're actually walking that beat together. And you keep walking it, so it would be tay, 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 ta, the student, tay, 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 ta, ta. So you're not having a gap in between. It is that keeping the beat. And again, that's back to the importance of doing things in a musically meaningful way.
And absolutely, because the next thing I was going to do was show you some flashcards, because I think flashcards play an important role in my teaching. I was talking about resources that I use, and you've just seen some of them keep me very happy, and I know they keep the students very happy and engaged and attentive and listening. And so do the flashcards. And we have to model over and over again these rhythm patterns, because we want to embed them in the students so that when they look at that, they can go ta, 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 or this one, off you go, ta, ta, ti, ti, ta, or this one, off you go, ti, 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 ta, ta, then two, off you go, ti, 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 ta. Yeah. and so forth. But it's musical, and it goes on. It's not just one flashcard. Then it goes down again. Oh, now what's yeah, yeah, okay. And so as a teacher, now I've done that quite a few times in my life, and I've got pretty good at knowing how to organise it, how to do this, how to do it in time, etc., etc. You won't get it right first time, but that's fine. Just all around, have a bit of humour. Yeah, like I said the other day in the Facebook, have humour, use smiles, use it for yourself. And if you get something wrong, admit it, because mistakes are how we learn. The corners where how we learn. Okay, and those are ready from Let's Play, actually, aren't they? Which is available through the membership. So all these flashcards are readily available.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to say something now.
No, I was just about to say, have I forgotten what I was just about to say? Yes, I
Sorry.
have.
Okay.
If it comes back to me, I'll shout it out.
Right. In that case, we'll leave that one about direct teaching, and we will go on. We've covered everything there. Yeah. Oh, there's another. Yeah. There's another way you see of representing the rhythm.
Oh, sorry, I know what I was going to say now. Sorry, I'm just going to hop in with it. And if you look at kind of even up to grade one level rhythms, do you know when they have a firm understanding of these, they could tap their way, sight read their way through the rhythms of books. And this is where we want them to get to, so that when they're looking at the same rhythmical concepts in new contexts, so new pieces, new ways, that they know what to do with them independently.
Yeah. 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 And I would say I'm just going to have a little bit of a shameless plug, because what you can see here is the rhythm for Hey Hey Look at Me, and that is from my Ready to Play book. And this sequence that we're talking about actually is followed through in this Ready to Play book. You will find this sequence in there, and what's more, the resources or the ideas for how to deliver it. So let's then move on to being specific and direct with the instruction. So at this early stage, you need to use this direct kind of teaching. So there's no guesswork involved. The student can't guess something that they have no knowledge of or no understanding of. And this is not just rhythm. I'm talking about tar and titi, or I'm talking about ticka later on, semiquavers. They can't guess what semiquavers are. But that you need to model it to them. I mean, yes, they probably could guess some of them, but you actually need to model how precise you need to be with that sort of thing. So there's no guesswork, and it's a teacher-directed method of learning new concepts. And it's got 5 parts to it. And the first thing is to make sure the student is really well prepared and ready for that new concept. And that's this, sound idea. And then you, the teacher, you have to be able to break that concept down and present it in a step-by-step way. You've seen us do some of that today. You've seen us learn a song. You've seen me show the rhythm, the movement to the rhythm notation down here. You have to be really clear with your language, and you have to be very, very mindful of what you're saying. I have a little almost like a script that I use. I do use wonder questions. You heard me ask down there. I wonder, because wonder questions are absolutely awesome questions to ask, because it opens up fields of wonder, basically. I wonder. It's not saying you must know, but wonder if you know. So that's the second one. And then you need to give them multiple opportunities for practicing. Yeah. And you can do guided practice with them for the first time. So that with the flashcards, I was doing guided practice because I was modeling it to you. But I can reduce the guide that I give you through the use of the flashcards. So I might start by going ta, ta, ti, ti, ta, and you copy, ti, ti, ta. Have a listen, can you hear it? Have a think, and off you go. And then the student says it back to me. That's a very rushed version of that, but you get what I mean. You can sort of scaffold that guided practice. You also need to give opportunities for independent practice, and you also need to give them the opportunity to review the learning. And that might be writing their own 4-beat rhythm. And again, we're going to see some of that right now in action with Ruel in a couple more videos. Sharon, over to you again.
Okay, lovely. So let me screen share, and we are at number 4. Clap back after me. Now clap and say. So copy exactly what I do. Ta, 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 ta. Take, take, ta, take, take, ta. Take, 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 ta, ta. Ta, take, 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 ta. This time I am going to tap a rhythm, but I'm not going to say the rhythm language, but I'd like you to tap it back once and then tap the rhythm another time and say the rhythm language. So for example, I might do this. So you would clap it back and then tap it back a second time, but that second time, see if you can say the rhythm language, which would be take, take, ta, take, take, ta. Here's a rhythm coming up. You ready? Here's another one. You were ready to say that one, were you? Okay, what is it? And clap and say.
Okay.
Lovely.
Well,
It was just to clap at the beginning, wasn't it?
lots of actually funny little things going on there. I mean, if you noticed, I did give it an example, but isn't it interesting when you talk too much? You know, you could actually get his like, oh, it was literally overload of information, and then I did build up the example, but possibly even better would have just been, okay, just watch. And where I would have, you know, done it almost like, or maybe it kind of had like a teacher place. Okay, this is the teacher.
Yeah.
Student. Yeah, and just where you're kind of demonstrating. It is, we talk, well, we say this, we've been saying this for 9 years, that we talk far too much in lessons. And there was a point, and where his expression was like, oh, you know, this is excruciating. What's coming next? And then where he was then getting to this point. And this is where we do need to watch our students, because they do give us so much feedback. And you're kind of sitting there, and then you're, you know, and it's one of the challenges of the job, where we're then having to, you know what it's like, we know something's not quite right, it's going wrong, but it's in that live, let's change it up now, that is actually one of the most challenging things to do. Yeah?
Yeah.
And I guess don't be afraid to kind of sit and say to the student, okay, let me just think about this for a moment. You know, because sometimes we need a little bit of thinking time. So do feel free to say that and kind of think, okay, there, something's frustrating them, something could be a little bit clearer. How might I do this? That way.
Yeah, no, it was fascinating, and it also shows the importance of actually watching ourselves, because it's actually when you sit and watch something that you've done that you start to reflect on the impact that you, the teacher, are having on your student.
And it's something actually just to mention as well. So inside the membership of the Curious Piano Teachers, alongside all the other lovely resources we have put in there something called Let's Play. It's a course that we brought out kind of, I think it's about 8 years old now, and we got it professionally filmed. We spent a lot of money on it because we got a professional video person to come in, our wonderful Richard Watson. But in those videos where you basically get us, you watch Sally and I teach groups, and the focus is rhythm at this level. But you get to then hear us reflect on our teaching as well.
Yeah, indeed.
Really interesting. You get lots of insights.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm aware that we're moving on here a little bit in time, so let's just keep going. We've looked at being specific and direct with instruction, so we're on to being persistent and consistent. Now, you've heard us mention this already on a couple of occasions, because these are two words that we've come together with over the last 9 years of curiousness, being the idea that as teachers, we have to be persistent and we have to be consistent. So in other words, we have to persist with our teaching of rhythm far, and even very simple rhythm ideas like this, it takes a long time to embed. So we have to persist, and we have to come up with as many creative and joyful and engaging ways as we can do to help our students get this really embedded in them, so that they feel that rhythm in their body. They look at that, they know how it's going to sound in the same way that you do. That takes time. And we have to be consistent. And I've already said, we have to make sure that we use the same approach. So don't start with one thing and then after 3 weeks the student hasn't got it. So you change your rhythm language and think, oh, that's not working, so I'll use something else, because the student will just be on the cusp of getting accustomed to that. So this idea of being persistent and consistent is very, very important. I know we're going to see Ruel with some more flashcards in a minute, but I just thought I'd go on and share this with you, which is one of the ideas that you can use. And this is what we call a rhythm clock. And this is an idea that I got from some of my lovely colleagues from the Voices Foundation. And we've had one specially designed now for Curious, and we'll be sending it out as a free resource with our replay link for the video. And for community members, this will be available on the website in a curiosity box. So the way you use this is that you start with number 12, and you use it very simply, just going round rhythms. Off we go. Ta, 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 ti, ti, ta, ti, 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 ta, 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 ti, ti, ta, ta, etc., etc. I'm just very conscious of time, so it might be that I do a live Facebook where I actually show you a few ideas for how to do this. Because you can just go round with the student. You could do a canon. Yeah. So for example, I'm going to start at number 12, and I'd like you to start when I get to the beginning of number 2. So we're going to do it in canon. Off I go. You go. Up there, you.
I lost your sound there for a minute, Sally. I think the sticks are interfering slightly with.
They don't like sticks. Zoom does not get on. Yeah. But you get the idea. Another fun thing you can do, and students do need to be quite familiar with the rhythms to do this, is you can play a musical maths. So I'm hoping it will recognise my hands. So I might tap this card, for example. Off I go. Hopefully you could hear that. And you look at the card.
Really, but I was kind of watching your hands. Ti 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 ta ta, was it?
Correct, which is number 2. And then I'm going to tap a second one. off I go. And that was number 1. And then you have to tap the answer. So you have to get the student to go 2 + 1 is 3. And then you go, are you ready? Off you go. And then, yeah, so you can have lots and lots of fun, musical maths, going around the circle, whatever you like. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to be sending that out, and you can let us know some of the ways that you've come up with. And I think, Sharon, you've got one more video or 2. I'm not sure.
There's a couple. So the last one, let me see. Okay, we had 4. Oh yes, okay. So we have this one here. So let me share this one next. Okay. Okay, so we have 3 different rhythm cards. Go and stand beside one. And I want you to read it.
Ta, ta, ti, ti, ta.
Clap and say.
Ta, 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 ti, ti, ta.
Choose a different one.
Ti, ti, ta, ta.
Check that one out again. Tap it and say it.
Ti, 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 ta, ta.
That's it. The other one.
Ti, ti, ta, ti, ti, ta.
I'm going to tap one and I want you to go and stand beside it. Okay, here it is. Here's another one. Here's another one. I'm now going to read a rhythm backwards. See if you can suss it out. So this is it, backwards.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's not, sorry. Here it is backwards. Tap it and say it backwards.
Ta, ti, ti, ta, ta.
And clap it as well as saying it.
Ta, ti, ti, ta, ta.
Choose another one card and go and tap it backwards. Say it and clap it.
Ta, ta, ti, ti, ta.
Check it out again.
Ta. Is this the one?
Yeah, so do it backwards.
So it starts.
No, start to the
here.
other side.
So yeah. Ta, ta, ti, ti, ta.
Ooh, sure. Look at it.
Okay. Ta, ta, ti, ti, ta. Oh wait, no. Ta, ta, ti, ti, ta.
Think carefully for a second about what it is you want to do.
Ta, ta, ti, 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 ti.
And I did get him to do that. It went on for a bit there that time, but yeah, isn't it interesting? You kind of mix it up, and isn't it amazing how we were talking about movement earlier? Isn't it amazing how much children bounce when they move? You
Yes,
know,
yes, all the time, don't they?
moving is so intrinsic to their being alive. They move. They love to move. You know, it wasn't just walk to the next one. Like, you know, we wouldn't necessarily. Maybe we would at Curious. But yeah, there is so much to observe. There is so much to observe. We're so blessed as teachers.
We are. So many lovely little moments in that they think, oh, I would do that differently. Yeah, okay, so I could have done that a little bit more. I do think going backwards, oh, that was really hard. I love the fact that you got it wrong to begin with, which kind of shows This is a bit tricky, this bit for today.
But yeah, it's always I think to I remember Alfie Kohn in one of his books saying, you know, it's always really nice for students to see us go into a blind alley and shifting into reverse and having to chug back out again, because it's learning at its most authentic. You know, it's not about getting it right all the time, but it's about reflecting and then figuring it out.
Yeah, absolutely. Mistakes are vital. Is that it, or do you have one more?
I have two more.
I have two more.
Do you want to just, okay, let me just see.
Maybe just one more, and then we've.
Okay, I'll do the writing one where he so this is this one.
Oh yes, the writing one. Yeah, yeah. So you've done a dictation, haven't you? Where you've done it and he's written it down, I think. But this one is
Yes. No, this has got two. Okay, so clap this
the two
rhythm back.
parts.
Tick, tick, tack, tick, tick, tack.
It is, but can you just clap it back for me? Okay, now can you write that rhythm down? It's always interesting too. Sometimes they will tap. Let's have a look. Or they will just say. There we go. You have to be quite. Here's another rhythm. Now I want you to clap it back first. Don't say it, just clap it.
Tick, tick, tick.
Don't say it, just clap it.
Now say
Now you can say it.
tick, 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 tack, tack.
Now can you clap and say?
Tick, 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 tack, tack.
And now write it down. A little bit too many potatoes, I think. Listen. Take, 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 ta, ta.
Tick, 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 tack, tack. Okay. Well, let's rub that one off. And I know what you want.
That's it. I'm now going to tap the first phrase of double, double, this, this. And I'd like you to write down what you think the rhythm is. Listen. Double, double, this, this. Think about your rhythm language. What would you say for that? Tell you what, can you tell me first? Tap it first.
Ta,
Hmm.
tick, 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 ta, ta.
So write it down, great. Okay.
Yeah, and he makes, I love it. He makes the classic mistake of doing two lots of ticks to represent take down. I mean, many children do that, and it's only when you see them, when you get them to write it down, do you realise that that is a misconception really for them in their heads. Yeah. So I think that just about brings it to a close. Our webinar for today. Were there any questions that we needed to answer that you picked up along the way? I can see that there's a problem with the discount code.
Yes, so we will look into that so that it will be working later. So I'm just going to really quickly share my screen here. Okay, there we go. This is the, okay, so this is inside the membership site. I have gone into, in fact, I did it via the search. I went to the search, put in Let's Play, which is this video series. So you can see here, video 1, learn how to teach a song or a chant through imitation and repetition. So a 30-minute video there. Learn how to illustrate musical opposites. This one really quite closely connected to what we were doing today. Learn how to introduce rhythm through the rhythm pattern of the words and show how the rhythm fits within the pulse beat. Learn how to observe the varying characteristics of children within a group. So it's worth saying that this is group stuff that we're doing. Introduce and compare phrases. And learn how to be persistent when students don't initially sing in lessons. Sally and I keep forgetting what's in everything because there's literally 9 years worth of content and various resources to accompany that. So we, in here, Sally, do you want to say a little bit about the curiosity boxes?
Well, there are some real treasures to be found within the curiosity boxes. We're currently doing an essential repertoire project, and if you want to go back up to the page rather than show all of them, Sharon, let's just go back up to the top. And the essential repertoire project you can see there is currently we're going to go into the June version of this, and I'm along with Angie Say, who's a community member, we're putting together essential repertoire for each of the levels of the piano framework. So for example, for there we go, the essential repertoire list. I'm burbling now, I know. So
Does that show, Sally?
yeah, we're looking at the main concepts from the piano framework at elementary 3. We're matching it to specific pieces. We give you this wonderful list of over 50 pieces at all sorts of, and the other thing we do, I think, that is quite unique, if you stop, just go back a page, back up to the Baroque, please, Sharon. And if you, to the Baroque, there we go, don't stop there. If you look with traffic lights, given traffic lights. So what this means is the piece an easy piece at elementary 3? Is it let's call it blue for bang on? Is it absolutely on the grade? This is what we need to be giving them. Or is it an extension piece? In other words, is it a pink for think piece? So we have green for go, should be easy to learn. We have a blue for absolutely bang on, or we have a pink for think. And by that, you can judge whether you're going to give your student an easy piece with a new concept. For example, I think with the Gigue, it is compound time. And can you, if you want them to have a Baroque piece at that level, then you could give them that. On the other hand, if you're wanting to give them a 6/8 time, a compound time that is more actually at elementary 3 level, then you would choose another piece from the list that you will find that. And so it gives you a really comprehensive and very different approach to the way that you choose your pieces. It's not based on exams, it's based on what that student needs to learn next and what repertoire is going to make them happy and what repertoire you feel comfortable teaching. So as you can see, there's lots of information in there. We tell you the books you can get the different pieces from. We're trying to collect them together as much as we possibly can. In June, we'll be looking at Intermediate 1, and I'm looking forward to doing that very much. And that's just one example of a curiosity box that you can discover in there. So I think we need to sort out this discount code, because you're right, I've just gone in there and although it says it should be working, it's not working. So we'll send you all a link with the video replay and we will get it working by then. So I'd like to say a huge thank you to all of you for coming and joining us today, and it's all for watching us on catch up. And I've enjoyed celebrating our birthday, Sharon, together.
It's been lovely. And the other thing I've got to say just before we go and we wrap here is that it's not just the membership site. It is also a Facebook group, which is we've had it the whole 9 years. And I cannot begin to say just how supportive members counted. It's Sally, you did a survey recently, and it came up as one of actually the kind of biggest reasons for being a member. A very kind, friendly, wholehearted space for piano teachers, like a staff room, to ask questions, to get responses to things. So there is that element to it as well. And of course, discount that our members get. And the discount, of course, that we are going to be giving you for our birthday celebrations. So normally yearly membership is £297. For our birthday weekend, we're giving you £100 off yearly membership. So that means £197 for the year. Not quite so sure what that is per day, but it's not very much at all.
All right, that's lovely. And we will, as I say, get and share all that with you. So thank you so much for those of you that are still there. Lovely to see some of you still there. Have a fantastic afternoon of teaching wherever you are in the world, and take care and look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye for now.
Dun, da, da, dum, bum. Have a great day.